Yeah, so I started my first business in Germany. I was Computer 2000. I think some of you may remember. And I see a lot of knocking heads. So back then, it was an interesting one for many reasons. Number one, we actually didn't want to do what we did. We just took this as a way to make a little bit money to build our own computer. Even though this never happened because the company went so fast to so big that we were so busy with doing what we do and growing it even further that we actually kept going. But building that company was kind of interesting because, you know, if you look at my track record, it looks like, oh, he built a $1 billion company here, another $250 million company here, all the companies were successful, okay, he must be a genius. Well, the more you look into it, the more you see that there's a lot of things in between that typically not kind of surface in a public way. So the first thing was we were about 9 months into it, and we were about to close Computer 2000 because we couldn't make it. We couldn't get the financing, we couldn't get the funding. I remember it was like 3 weeks before I met with Steve Ballmer because we want to have Microsoft, and then we said, oh, screw Microsoft, whatever these products are, we need products that are really selling right away, selling through the channel. And we were about to actually close it down because we realized there's way more money than we need, and that was not available to us until we found, I think a week before we actually wanted to shut it down, we found one deal, and that was with Lufthansa, who said, okay, we want to buy, I don't remember, X amount of cards and software and so on from you guys. And we gave that deal to our reseller, which was one of the big ideas that we work only with business partners, only with resellers. They couldn't believe that we actually do that. And we did, and that made, I mean, word of mouth was like within weeks that this is one of the coolest companies because they're really loyal. So we went over the hump and we just about made it. So that was an interesting part of that $1 billion company, which it became much later. One of the interesting things I believe also is we did get funding. We did get actually, even before the term venture capital was really well known, from a Deutsche Bank Wagnisfinanzierungsgesellschaft. It was actually the first venture capital company in Germany, and they financed us all the way through. One thing I learned back then, which I kind of only urge you to really think about, money is available around the planet if there is an opportunity. And whether you are in Germany, in Silicon Valley, in Nicaragua, you name it, you will find the funding if there is an opportunity for an investor. Because investors look for opportunities. It's the only thing they do. Well, what I also learned, in particular in the last couple of months, since I'm doing only startup business, so to speak, that the numbers of opportunities, like we heard from Andy, is so much greater here than over there. And there are a couple things that are different. And through this process of growing these companies, I learned it, but I didn't even know that I learned it. And one of my missions, I'm love to be here, and this is really my home. And San Francisco is, like everybody says here, it's the greatest city in the world. But one of my missions was when I was back in Berlin in January this year, I saw, I'm not back in Berlin, actually it was the second time in my life in Berlin, but we did a meetup, and we had such an energy in this meetup of about 150 people. I didn't know any one of them. And we did the meetup simply by asking people, hey, invite your friends so that we get a crowd together. And we flew in, we saw the numbers going up on the meetup list, and finally we ended up with 120, 130 people. This was amazing. And there was such an energy, Jan, that we said, you know what? I learned a bunch of stuff here in Silicon Valley in my 15 years here. I want to help these guys to learn that too. Because I realized one thing, it's about learning. There's no magic in an American brain that you don't have. And if you think about it, most of the Americans coming here are foreigners anyway. So they learn something here that the rest of the world isn't really kind of capturing. And so that became our mission, okay? So 93%, that's a really sad statistic, and it isn't my German brain who starts with that, because typically we here don't do that, but I think it's a very healthy number to understand. 93% of companies, including the US, startups are not going to make it. And there are a couple of reasons for that. And the only reason why we have so many more startups here than in Europe is because there are so many more people doing something, okay? Fuzzy vision is one of the things I noticed over the last couple of months is one of the biggest problems. Oh yeah, there's a vision. What we learned here, and again, it's a learning process, we learned here to articulate our story very well. We spend a lot of time to tell the world what the story is. Now, to the contrary, in Germany, not only that we don't learn it, we don't want to tell the story because it's so secret and we have so much fear that somebody's copying what we're doing that we don't tell anybody. So if we don't tell anybody, who would actually invest in us? I mean, think about it. This is almost impossible. So then we, founders team, a problem across the world, always the same. Here, over there, no difference. I met people from Australia, from Tokyo, from Japan, from China, from various countries in Europe. And so if I look at all the teams we looked at, and by the way, we went through about 1,000 startups in the last 6 months since we started. And so the diversity is huge. And for me, there was a super interesting learning is that like the team problem is a global problem. That's neither a European nor a US problem. It's just globally that we have weak teams where people just don't work cohesively together at a big picture. Too slow in execution and getting traction is another big issue. And that is, again, one difference here versus over there. People in Europe drag their feet, as we say. It takes months. And then another year, and this algorithm need to develop, and everything need to develop, and it's just not getting on the street. Well, here, this is not even in our brains happening. We want to get the feedback from the market right away. And that's one big difference you need to consider. Interestingly, I think so far what I've seen, it has never been lack of funding that a company did not make it. I have yet to see myself, one company, great concept, great team, bold thinking, everything really well thought out, and they don't get funding? Impossible. I can tell you, impossible. I don't believe that. And so it may happen for some reason. I have yet to see one. And again, so I was asked actually to present because I did 2 companies over there, 3 companies, 2 companies here. I got funding for both sides, and I had the same issues to get funding. The same issues was I needed to perfect the pitch. I was a little weak maybe sometimes on the market side. Even after the 4th company, it was not perfect. I needed to do this and this and this and that to make it actually perfect. But it was always about the story. I mean, eventually I got the funding together, but I realized there is actually not a big difference between here and over there, where the difference, like we heard, I mean, 30% of the US funding comes from one street. I call it the maiden lane, because we're all going there and trying to get our money. And in Europe, it's a little bit different, because there are much less companies, but I believe personally it has to do in its origin with the number of opportunities. It's just so hard to figure out which of the German companies were really, really good because they don't talk about it. And then there's a special problem with Germans, I have to say, and I can say this because I am one. If there is a company very successful, Germans have a perfect attitude to kill it. I mean, think of anyone who is successful right now. Take, Zalando. Everybody loves to tell the rest of the world how stupid Zalando is and how bad they are with their employees, and everything is so terrible. You know, their IPO, I mean, they will make it, I don't even know, maybe they have already. Did they or did they not? They did? Okay, how is it going? I don't even know. Bad. No wonder. I mean, how can you build entrepreneurs who starve for success in a culture that is actually loving to kill it? So that's a problem where, you have to be really adaptive to the German kind of culture to be successful in that environment. And I remember when we were like 250 million in revenue, there was an article about it's one of the coolest success stories after World War II. So I thought, oh wow, this is cool. Guess what? I got more people telling me, calm down, don't take it too serious, blah, 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 instead of saying, hey, yeah, really cool, so much greater, blah, 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 we do this and that with you. So I realized, oh, okay, so I need to be very careful. So that's an unfortunate situation, but I think you can learn to deal with it and come over it. Okay. So we have 20 times more opportunities in venture funds, so let me go through 4 things why that is. Okay? Bold ideas. We heard it, I think, twice tonight. And bold ideas means not only, oh, I built something that shifts the Earth around outside the sun and we're traveling to the universe. I mean, that would be a bold idea too. But bold ideas mean, okay, I have this bold idea making a lot of effort in to do something that is really great for our society, not for you. Think of society. And the more you think about the society you're working with, and the bolder it is, the better it gets. Now, if you think through all that, that's awesome. So, one of the things I learned, even here, don't boil the ocean. Who had heard that term? Some? No? A few? Okay. Don't boil the ocean is the perfect equivalent to what's part of the German culture is step by step, do small, don't boil it, do a little bit here, do a little bit there. So many entrepreneurs get actually, even from their advisors, from their mentors, conditioned to do step by step and don't boil the ocean. Now, you have heard Steve Jobs saying, he wanted to put a dent into the universe, right? Which is way more than boiling just the ocean. I mean, he wants to put a dent in the universe. And everybody says, oh, masa buena, yeah, put a dent in the universe. Now, if you look at this, I realized one thing. Most of the mentors and consultants and people who help you, which they do, and that's really great, if they don't happen to have multiple startups behind their own business, they probably come out of this culture, small and step by step, and you will have always trouble to boil the ocean and build a bold idea. So one of the things I want you to do is, if you have a bold idea, let nobody on this planet ever kill it. Because this is what real entrepreneurs are, totally focused on what they want to do. If it's taking 1 year, 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, it doesn't matter. But focus on it and think through. Okay? Here comes a real difference. It's no DNA problem. It's no kind of metaphysical something. It's something you can learn. Share your ideas early on with as many as possible people. Europeans try to not do that, because they're fearful that somebody copies the idea. Now, if you think about, there's a company called Microsoft, 30,000 employees, I think right now, 20, 30 billion in the bank. They cannot, still not today, copy the idea and the concept of one of their competitors, Oracle, to build a robust, decent database. Why is that? Because you cannot copy ideas when you execute well on your own idea. It is impossible. I can tell you ideas. I'm working on a thing called genetic computing. So one of the problems we have in our social media space is we carry so many informations from people, profile data and so forth. If we store this in the old way in the database, it takes longer and longer and longer, and there's a lot of stuff with it. And so I looked at genetics, how it works, with all the inheritance models and whatever. Brilliant concept. So we started to do that. I talked about this. I talked about 2 universities. I have just no problem that somebody's even trying to copy it. Well, the best thing about copying your idea, you know what that is? It makes you a market leader if you do it right. How can you become a market leader? If you have followers. And if nobody follows you, you are obviously not a leader. That means, you must hope that somebody copies your business in order to make you that leader that you want to become. Okay? Here's one thing, and that is also here a problem and all over the world, but much less here than in Europe. You gotta get your damn product fucking out in 6 months. I mean, excuse my language. But those people who drag their feet and work on them forever, they will work on that forever. One of the things that you really need to take back to your heart. Now, you may have, who is a startup, by the way? Who has products out there? Okay, so you may work on this already for 2 years and 3 years. Okay, fine. But continue to work on this in your own chamber. Get it out, maybe, let's say, in 3 weeks. Talk to your team internally and say, okay, I learned something. I want to get the product out in 3 weeks, no matter what it is. And I think there's no one here who would not be able to do that. That's one of the differences, probably the single biggest difference in my world, so to speak, in my businesses. I never loved the product so much that it needed to be perfect. It's actually to the contrary. I had more discussions and more problems with my executive teams because I wanted to get it out at a certain time, at a certain day, and I did not allow to slip it. Now, I was, again, I have this language, sorry, I think it's okay. I was this asshole of CEO who just did not allow to do that. And they wanted to have it because they wanted to have more quality. Trust me, as a CEO, I want a quality product. There's absolutely no question. But for me, a product that slips and slips and slips, and I still don't know whether the quality is good enough or not, this is far worse than getting bad feedback in the beginning. The one thing I learned 5 years ago, which worked, 7, 8, well, actually it's 10, but anyway, it worked perfectly for us, and for every startup I helped to grow, is when you know there are 50 things that are really not working in your product, make that list, make it public, tell everybody, so nobody will complain because we knew from the beginning what's working and what not. So you overcome your problem issue very quickly, but what you never know before you go out is what the quality really is. You can have invested millions in quality assurance, and boom, there is Jim, Joe, Ruth, and Susie and telling you this is crap, that doesn't work, and this doesn't work. So, how much further are you when you work on this for 2 years and then get the same feedback? You only lost 2 years. Lots of money, time to market, all these kind of things. Okay? Yeah, and this is something we all can learn. This is, again, nothing DNA. This is not special in our brains here or grown with us. Walk the walk, talk the talk as soon as you start the company. So that was something I actually learned from a very good advisor, which I had when I think I was 26 or so. And he said, okay, before you even, go out, and he was an American, so that was a little luck on my side. Before you even go out and start a company, talk to at least 20 people what you want to do. And I thought, okay, I was scared too that, because this was a very cool concept what we had. I was scared that people copy it. And he said, okay, talk to one distributor, your direct, at least mentally your direct competitor. I thought, you can't mean it. And he said, yeah, do that. And I did. So Computer 2000 was a distributor of high-tech products. And I knew one that was Unitronic, and I liked the guy. We were actually sort of friends, but we were, theoretically at least, direct competitors. And he asked me to ask them what they think about what we were doing. And I did. Gladfully. They never competed with us because he felt, he helped me so much that he wanted to even see me succeed. There were other competitors who I probably didn't really want to talk because I didn't know them too well. But then I talked to a lot of people, and with every company I did, I started to talk to people before I even started. And once I started, I talked to even more people. And I can speak here freely, and but I'm not this extroverted guy when I was 26 and not when I was 35 that you might expect me to be. And this is, most founders are actually more introverted than extroverted. They have so many things on their plate that they're mentally just not just jumping around. And you're probably the same thing. But it is part of the job to do that, okay? So Silicon Valley is based on that culture which we talk, but I think it is important to understand these are all imported people. Not most of the entrepreneurs here in Silicon Valley either have been coming here before, or their parents maybe, so first generation American. So there is genetically no difference. The universities are very good here, but I have also to say, because I learned a lot about German universities just lately, there's a lot of change going on over there. So I wouldn't say that this is the magic difference. It still is, to some degree, but probably not the magic difference. So I think we can really do a lot in Europe if we learn the same way we learn here. And that is actually, as I said, part of my mission. I want to help companies in Munich, Berlin, wherever, to actually adapt those behavior because it's so much more successful. I have a mission, helping more startups to be successful than ever before possible. That's a bold mission, because there's a lot of people who are helping startups to be successful. I have a trouble still to scale it. Our mentor network is growing. It's growing very fast, so that's cool. We attract a lot of startups to our accelerator, which is also cool because the whole accelerator is working on traction. We're not talking about how to become an entrepreneur and so forth, because our accelerator basically is in the second phase. So once you have your product and you're about to go to the market, then people come to us. So unlike most of the accelerators here or over there. But here's and this is actually where the name comes from, Society 3. I personally believe wholeheartedly that you guys, entrepreneurs, you change the world more than all generations before you did. This, what I call the Innovation Society, will be creating more wealth around the planet than the Industrial Revolution. And when you look back in time, so throughout Egypt, when the pharaohs built the harbors and things, they made Egypt extremely wealthy. And obviously the pharaoh was even allowing to build them pyramids, but still their wealth helped the rest of Egypt to become, back then, the wealthiest nation on the planet. So this concept of building something for the society was actually copied, and we had kingdoms and Caesars and so on across our entire world over the next 3,500 years until the Industrial Revolution. It had actually the same pattern, with the exception, now we had thousands of kings, and these thousands of kings were actually entrepreneurs. There was people who building companies. And that was the Industrial Revolution. So we had 1,000 times more rich people than ever before, but all these rich people created wealth for their respective ecosystems. It was whole North America, it was whole Europe, who actually become wealthy compared to the rest of the world. So what happens was that all this wealth actually made others wealthy in order to be motivated to, contribute to these companies. Now, make the math. There are about 800,000 startups around the planet right now. If we all can help at least most of these 800,000 startups to become relatively, moderately successful, and have between 550 and 500 employees. They would create 4 billion jobs, more than all enterprises on the entire planet together has today. Which means you guys will make a huge difference to our society, whether you even realize that today or not. And that is what drives me more than anything else, to simply be part of that. So and this is why I want to help, get more startups successful than any time before. And it will be just not me, of course. It will be thousands of people like me who do that. And if you want to be successful in Germany, well, I would be happy to help you. If you want to be successful here, I'm happy to help you either. But I think, I just don't want to cater just to the Bavarian team here. I think, and I'm actually a living example, you don't have to be here in order to be successful. But what you have to do is adopt a couple things that made the successful companies. And where you geographically do that is not really that important. Microsoft is another example. They're sitting up in, Washington. Who wants to be there? Well, they happen to be there and have 30,000 or more engineers. So there are people like Mercedes-Benz and Porsche and what have you in Germany. So it's all possible. But what you need to do is twist your brain towards that possibility. That gives funding to help you fund, and then you build new startups and help other startups down the road. Thank you very much.